Hi, my name's Shawn Cole. I'm here with my good friend Paul Boechler. We are at Fadermaster Studios in lovely Vancouver, Canada. Here to talk to you today about the Creamer Plus made by our good friends at Sonic Farm. Here at Fadermaster, we do lots of different work. We do a lot of overdubs and mixing in this particular room. Probably work on most styles of music that are out there, from very bass-intensive types of electronic music to lots of rock and lots of folk and probably everything in between.
Yeah. We've got a lot of different preamps here. In this room in particular, we've got preamps from Chandler and from Universal Audio, and ever since we've had this guy, I think pretty unanimously everybody tends to use it more than any other preamp. It's a pretty versatile preamp with a couple different modes and different options that it has. It's really a chameleon preamp that you can use in many different applications.
While some of our preamps are more limited in the number of buttons and switches that they might have, the guys at Sonic Farm really gave you lots of different options that should not scare you. They should encourage you. That's what really makes it able to be a chameleon in the studio. Before we acquired this, I got to test out the Creamer at sessions that I was doing, bed track sessions at studios in a number of different places around town, places that would have a Neve console and an API console and then all sorts of great external preamps as well. And inevitably, no matter how hard I tried, I could not, as long as I spent the time and had the time to actually tweak and listen, which hopefully we always have time for, by making a few adjustments, it could shape itself into something that was doing the same sorts of things that all of those preamps were doing, but in my opinion, in a better way. Whether I was using a ribbon mic on something that maybe I shouldn't have been, something that was a little bit quieter and maybe that I wanted a bit more top end from, but I really loved the grainy quality of the ribbon mic. Plugged it into the Creamer and it's got an amazing amount of clean gain to be able to really get the most out of that microphone without a ton of noise. From overheads on the drum kit to small diaphragm condensers inside a grand piano. Inevitably, whatever was my favorite instrument to record, or what I deemed to be the most important thing of the day, I'd throw at the Creamer and it would outperform every other option I had. I like that it can be like a Millennia preamp, which is an amazing, really clean, beautiful preamp for acoustic music, especially, I find, without much coloration. The Creamer can do that, but it can also, if you push it a little harder and use some different settings, can give you some of the glorious artifacts that you want from something that maybe pushes the envelope of distortion. You can get natural compression from it and some warmth and top end boost as well from it. So
yeah, and in this room, I find when we're not using it for tracking, we're using it for mixing. We do our mixing primarily in the box here, so having the option to take those mixes and give them a little bit of warmth and love in the analog domain is a great thing. And with the line inputs on the Creamer Plus, running the mix through it's right away gives it a little bit of warmth that almost immediately reminds me of tape. But with the EQ options on it, can just kind of help give your mix a little bit different flavor that sounds almost a little bit like mastering right out of the gate.
Hold on, are you stepping on the mastering engineer's toes? Are they going to get mad at you now?
The first time that actually I got this unit, I was doing a single and I was passing it off to mastering, and I wasn't sure, if the EQ options would be getting into the mastering engineer's territory. So I gave him one with the Creamer and one without, and said, I don't care which one you choose. Just, pick the one that you like the most. And he just came back and said, you can just keep giving me the one with the creamer. That sounds amazing. It's exactly what I would do. So ever since then, it's almost always on my mix bus. But I'll usually try and run things like overhead groups or a piano group through it as well, because again, that little bit of analog EQ can just help make your sounds a little bit better before you start really getting into mixing. Especially if I didn't record them, it can kind of help, just warm things up a little bit. So it's a fantastic unit on that, and the fact that we can use it for recording as preamps and then as a line input during mixing, there's not many other units out there that can help you in all aspects of the recording process.
Not to mention the fact that it's a pretty great DI option, unless of course you went for something as glorious as the Jedi, which is a beast all by itself.
The Sonic Farm DI as well. It's we've compared it to many other DIs, and I don't think there's no real comparison when it comes to this as the main DI. I've even had guitarists, and myself included, typically don't like the sound of an electric guitar DI, but I've been getting sounds before and just checking level with this, and they immediately perk their heads up and go, "What amp are we using? This is great!" And it's like, that's the DI. So it's a fantastic unit. So you can imagine that when you put bass guitar through it, or a synth, anything where you're really going to be relying on the sound of a DI signal, it's just amazing right out of the gate. And it's just nice having this guy around, knowing that we don't have to worry about bass anymore.
I think another testament to the Creamer Plus is the fact that the preamps are amazing, and as soon as it became apparent that using it like you are for the mix bus was so useful, the Cream Liner appeared, which removes the preamp option and gives you a more affordable version for doing the offline processing stuff. And I've had the pleasure of using the Cream Liner for live sound, where I have been using a digital console that has no soul, and I strap a Cream Liner across the bus, and it's an astounding difference. All of a sudden, I love digital consoles, and everything works out fine. Especially, again, having the ability to use it in a number of different, with different settings in a number of different ways. There were times when I was at a studio that had a lot of old vintage analog gear, a lot of like Pultecs and the V72s and some old Universal Audio console components that also had a Neve console. And in those situations where I might be used to a Neve preamp going into a Pultec, going into they had so many strange old compressors as well. When I switch it out and put the Creamer in, depending on what I was recording before that, it doesn't necessarily match that Neve perfectly right out of the gate, and you have to realize that there is some darkness down the signal chain that you're feeding it into. But I think they've given enough options and flexibility to be able to make adjustments that kind of that push for that. So you can make it a bit darker if that's what you're used to. And
I think any preamp that really gives you the options to tailor it sound a little bit more along the lines of the source that you're recording is a great thing, because typically it'd just be like, that's a dark preamp, that's a bright preamp, and you just have to choose the tool best for the job, and it's nice to have a multi-tool, as it were.
The Swiss Army knife of preamps. Yeah. I think it's definitely the desert island preamp if you
absolutely.
If you had to choose one preamp to only record everything with for the rest of your life.
Easy.
Yeah. So go get a Creamer.